Hi, this is my first entry into my new series I'm calling DM Diaries. Basically, the purpose of this is going to be kind of recording my process start to finish in regards to creating D&D sessions from scratch. This is going to be primarily for online play, but a lot of it applies to offline as well. Basically, the reason I wanted to create this was I find a lot of resources on YouTube for like tips and tricks on how to start DMing for players with no experience. I shouldn't. They are useful. Don't get me wrong. They're very useful, and I have nothing but respect for those creators. But I find the issue is with with these videos. They're nice, but it's still difficult for DMs to take that first step and like create the session and apply those tips. A lot of the tips, they're helpful for like while you're playing, but a lot of DMs don't know where to start. They don't know how to pick up the pen, so to speak, and like start writing the session. They don't know where to begin. So this is kind of like a rough outline for like those first steps, like what you might want to use to do that. So the software I'm using, well, it's not really software, but I'm using Evernote, which is a free-to-use kind of note-taking system online. You can pay for it, but you don't need to. And what I do is I just write down bulletins for what I want the session to be. So I have nothing but a pen and paper right now. I just write down, okay, this is what I want to happen. Now, don't force your players to do exactly what you want to happen, because that won't be fun for them if you just tell them what to do or, force their hand. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm setting targets that I want to hit during a session, because I think it might be fun for the players, but I'm not counting on it. This is just kind of like a rough outline. This session also, it's not going to be one of my actual D&D sessions. This first installment is just going to be kind of a generic, very simple, kind of like level 1 new player, new DM session for everybody. For if you want to get into the Dungeons and Dragons like as a DM and you want to bring new players in as well. This is just kind of for that scenario, because I find it's usually if a DM is starting fresh, typically the players are also newer as well, from my experience. So that's kind of what this is, just a rough outline of a generic, very simple session for new players and new DMs. So yeah, I just have bulletins here. Again, I'm trying to hit these because I think it could be fun. At the end of the day, that's what you want to do. You just want to make sure the session is fun. If these don't go off the way I want, that's totally fine. This just had a rough outline. So once I have all my bulletins down on how I think the session should play out, or the targets I want to hit, or the beats I want to hit, I'm going to write down an intro. Not every DM has to do this. It's just my style. I like to write down maybe a paragraph, but no more than that. Just like a quick little intro to set the scene for the players. This will be useful to kind of even if you are using battle maps and they can like visually see what is going on, like it's clear, it's still useful to have this, because just dropping your players in and telling them to role play sometimes can be difficult for them. You kind of want to like dip their toe in with a little bit of scene setting before you let them do that. So yeah, to set the scene for your players, kind of describe the surroundings. It's up to you whether you want the players to know each other or not. That's something you can discuss with your players before you have your session. It's important to sit down with your players and talk about what you want from the session as well before you actually play it. But that's probably a whole nother video entirely. So basically, yeah, I got all my bullet points down. I have my intro going. I'm just thinking now, okay, I want to keep this simple. What's a simple plot I could introduce? And I think what I end up going with is, the players are just at this tavern celebrating with the local townspeople because there was a harvest or something. And then at night, a lot of the townspeople in the tavern are kidnapped by goblins who come through a secret underground tunnel. And their mission will inevitably end up saving them. Now, obviously, it might not play exactly that way, but that's what I'm going to plan for. Usually in a campaign or like a setting like this, I would like to throw in like a twist, like maybe the tavern owner is working with the goblins secretly. The players wouldn't maybe have to figure that out as they go. I think it's good to have like those twists and those like shocking moments for the players to discover. I think that's a lot of fun, but for the sake of like a very simple like entry level session, I'm not going to do that. It's going to be very straightforward. Now you can lead on maybe the players with like a detail here and there that maybe there's some sort of trickery going on, even if there isn't, because that could create a fun dynamic in the group. Like some players trust certain NPCs and then others don't, and that can create good role play moments, with your players. But for this session, it's gonna stay simple. At least in terms of my note taking, it's gonna stay simple. So yeah, basically I have the intro written down. I have all my targets that I want to hit, all my bullet points written down. And then I think from here on, I'm probably going to move on to NPCs, I believe. And NPCs are a really important part of your sessions. Now, you don't have to have like really detailed NPCs. In fact, I'd say keep your detailed ones rare. I find most of the times the memorable non-player characters that you create are ones that you didn't even know existed until that moment. Like, there's characters in my sessions that I'll make where I'll have all their lore planned out, where they're from, who their family is, all their stats, like tons of unnecessary detail because I want the players to get to know them and discover these things. And then the players kind of, when they move around them, they bypass them because they don't find them that interesting, which, yeah, can hurt. But then, like, your players will fall in love with this one goblin who, surrendered and became friends with them, which you had no idea was even going to be an NPC. So don't put too much detail into your NPC creation or planning, because odds are, they're either not going to get used or they're going to turn into completely different NPCs than you had intended. A really nice person could end up backstabbing the party when you didn't plan on them doing it, but it just worked so great in the moment you had to make it happen. So now they're basically a completely different character because you thought they were going to be good, but they turned out to be evil. So yeah, don't overthink NPCs. They're going to change a lot in the moment. I would only detail them once you're like pretty sure the players are going to come across them again, or you think they're going to join the party, etc. So I'm just making a few NPCs here, just names that I might want to pull up or like introduce to the party. And again, like don't overplay in any of your notes. Like, I have a big problem with that, is I'll spend hours and hours, like multiple days, like planning sessions because I want them to go really well. And what ends up happening is you waste a lot of it. You're not going to, and that's not your player's fault. Like, unless you're railroading your players to do exactly what you want, you're not going to use all of the content you prepare. And that's totally fine. Like, you don't want to railroad your players to do exactly what you want because they're not going to enjoy that. So just be prepared to waste a lot of your prep work if you do a lot of it. You know what I mean? Like, if you spend 3 hours prepping, you're going to waste 2 hours of it. And that's just the way the game is played. Like, that's no one's fault, really. That's just how it goes. That's why it's important to write down, like, those targets and not, don't rely on hitting them. Just, you can try to, but don't force your players, to land on them. Just aim for them. So here I'm putting in another battle map. Once the players find the secret cave, they're going to go down there and, they could do some combat down there and rescue the townsfolk. So I'm just kind of uploading. I grabbed the wrong one there. Oh, no, this is the tavern. My bad, I got ahead of myself. So here I have the tavern. I just got this as like a free battle map online. I'm just going to upload it in here. I'm not going to go into too much detail on how to use all these tools, as there's tons and tons of resources on YouTube on how to use things like, Roll20 and, recording software and all this crap. You don't need to hear from me how to use all these tools. There's somebody like more qualified to do that. I'm just here outlining my session details and, how I go from beginning to end from scratch. Here I'm just using a software called Night Cafe, and it can basically just generate images of whatever you want. So I'll just type in a really basic outline for what I want a character to look like. I'll generate it. Okay, I got a blonde halfling. That's what I want one of my NPCs to be, a blonde halfling. So I'll just take this image and I'll crop it and turn it into a little character token to use. This is a really useful software if you're playing online. Even if you're offline, honestly, you could use this and then print them off, cut them out. glue the image on like a coin or something and use it as like a token on your handmade boards, or the boards you buy and put on the kitchen table. Yeah, it's really useful software. And then Token Stamp is just what I use to turn them into circular images with a little border. It's really simple to use. Yeah, I'll just throw her in there. Just kind of putting in some more interactables in the world for your players to, interact with. Now again, like, your players might not interact with these characters, and that's totally fine. Don't force them to. Just accept that they've become wasted. And you know what? Maybe if not this session, maybe you could reintroduce them in another session. And be like, oh, hey, didn't we see that person at that tavern? Like, okay, now you got a story developing with them. So don't be afraid to waste things either, because it's never like truly wasted, or like just you're recycling. I guess I should say don't be afraid to recycle things, not waste them. Because the amount of times I've recycled things is like, it's out of this world. People say, okay, let's play tonight, and it's kind of a last minute session, and so you just recycle a whole bunch of stuff that they haven't seen from previous sessions and kind of Frankenstein it all together and do a new one. And that's something you're going to do a lot. So now, once I have the tavern set up, the intro's all set up, some of the NPCs are ready to go, they're around, the scene is set, I'm going to set up the cave, which is the next point for the session to go to. Basically just write down, the players, like what they're going to see going in there, some enemies, and it's important for make it clear for your players if you plan on changing scenes. This is especially if you're using battle maps. If it's theater of the mind, it's not as important because it's more fluid. But if you're using battle maps and you want to change the scene, so you want everybody to move into this cave. Obviously, you don't want to split the party too much, right? Like, you don't want to have some people in the tavern, some people in the cave, because then you're like flipping between battle maps, and it's kind of awkward. I would try to get all the players to go places together. Don't force it, but kind of imply it to your players that it would be best to do so, just to keep things fluid and moving. Yeah, that's like the only time I would say try to hold your player's hand into that scenario, because a split party is not a horrible thing, but when you're flipping between two different battle maps because players are that split up, it's like, okay, that can be a bit rough. So here I'm just throwing in the battle map, another free battle map I got online. Just threw it into Roll20 and just placing some goblins around here. I'm thinking the players come in here through a hole in the roof that the goblins climbed out of. Maybe they see the rope that they used to climb up through. So they're going to go into this cave and find the goblins sleeping. Maybe they'll find the guests tied up and gagged or something. And they could save them. Maybe they sneak around the goblins. They don't necessarily have to fight them if they don't want to. Make sure you let your players have a lot of options on how to interact with the world. Don't spring combat on them if they don't want to be in combat. If they kind of make it clear they want to be sneaky, make sure you allow that to happen. I would only force the players into a scenario where they have to do combat if I thought the story depended on it, or if I think it's gonna be a really good moment or really important for character development. But if it's just some goblins in a cave, let it just play out fluidly how the players want. Here I'm just this is like the D&D wiki, you can use this to look up stats and spells, but here I'm just writing in some generic stats for the goblins and their weapons and attacks. These aren't real stats, I'm just kind of pulling them out of my ass. There's plenty of resources to find these stats for enemies online. You can just look up D&D monster manual, whatever. My only thing is, if you do want to create your own custom stats for monsters, that is completely fine. In fact, I encourage that. I think it's a lot of fun having your own custom monsters. Make sure you keep your stats consistent, because your players will find out very quickly and look at the vibe that you're kind of making up stats on the fly. And it's going to feel really disingenuous if your players are fighting monsters and the monster stats are changing during combat, and they're going to be able to tell. It's not going to feel very good. So just keep your stats consistent if you do want to make your own monsters. I'm just naming something. So you can also see I wrote some chests in there, like some notes about loot. I would try not to place loot in chests specifically. Just have loot ready, like loot pools ready, that you could pull from. So my players, okay, they see a chest that was kind of hidden behind some barrels, and it's locked, and they want to open it. Okay, I'm going to have them open it, whatever. I'm going to go to one of my loot pools that I have in my notes and apply that to that chest. So now, if I don't want them to discover the really good loot yet, okay, I can just make that chest, some like more generic stuff. But if at the end of the dungeon there's a big golden chest, okay, I'll go to the loot pool, see what I want to throw in there. It doesn't have to be set in stone beforehand necessarily. Here I just throw some goblins into this foggy area that the players can't see. This is just a DM thing, DM tool you can use. Now, if I want the goblins to be in the tavern, maybe if they discover them during the kidnapping, I have them ready just to throw in there. But yeah, that's the extent of it. I mean, I just kind of go over quickly all the tools I used. You can use Google Docs. That's a really good one. I highly recommend using Google Docs. Yeah, I guess my biggest advice is, don't be afraid to, get creative. But really, if you want your first session to run smoothly, keep it generic, keep it very simple, keep it obvious. That's going to keep the game flowing, and I think your players will appreciate it. All right, see ya.